On today's Transport Evolved, the Tesla Roadster suffers some recalls. Mitsubishi enters production for the European spec, iMEV and variants. Tesla unveils its flat battery model for the Tesla Model S, and it's very impressive. We discuss choosing a variety of different EVs to now suit a variety of tastes. You can finally say that you prefer one maker over another and be a bit picky. And the e-Tracer, the very strange but slightly sexy motorbike, or is it a car, enters production. Coming up next on Transport Evolved. Transport Evolved is sponsored by owning an electric car. All you need to know about owning an electric car, www.owninganelectriccar.com, and also sponsored by audiblepodcast.com to claim your free audiobook and a choice of over 75,000 audiobooks for your iPod or MP3 player. Head to www.audiblepodcast.com/Transport Evolved. It's time to evolve your transport. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to episode number 19 of Transport Evolved for Thursday, October 7th, 2010. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield, and I have a pen in my ear, which I've just noticed. Just trying to retrieve it there a second ago, if you're watching the video. And I'm your usual Thursday host into the world of green transport, alternative energy, but we focus mainly on the things you plug in. That's right, electric cars. And we've got two great guests for you today. They've been on the show before. I suppose they're kind of regulars. And I was trying to think of a title for the show, and possibly it being Two Men Named Michael. So without further ado, I will go and introduce them. But first, hey, have you checked out our live chat room? If you head to www.transportevolved.com/live, you can take part in the show live right now. What you do is you choose yourself a nickname in that window there. If you're watching the video, you will see what I mean. You just click on here. I'm going to choose a name and join the chat room, and then I will be chatting with everybody else, all the other people watching the show. At the moment, there's only one other person in the room, but I know that there will be more as the show progresses. We're a bit late today. I'm sorry, we had a bit of a technical flaw. But anyway, let's go on and introduce today's guests. First up, a man who helped me found Transport Evolved, who's no longer a host, more of a guest, no longer a commentator, more of an industry insider. Mr. Mike Boxwell, welcome back.
Hello, Nikki. Thank you for having me back. It's great to be part of the show again.
Absolutely. Well, you're always welcome, my dear. So how are things in the world of Mike Boxwell?
It's been a manic couple of weeks, really, one way or another. As some people know, I'm actually involved with a project to get an electric vehicle, an electric van onto the roads. And so there's all sorts of work being done on that, and system developments and testing and all that sort of good stuff. And it's been very exciting. So that's been keeping me busy. And in the evenings and weekends, I've been writing books. And my book on the Mitsubishi iMEV is at the printers now, being printed off, which is very exciting. So that will be in the shops later on this month. So it's been exciting, shall we say?
Exciting indeed, indeed. And you have you not? Have you handed over some of your hard-earned cash? Did I hear a rumour? Have you done the deed?
What deed are you talking about here? And is it repeatable on air?
A Nissan Leaf.
A Nissan Leaf. Well, I put down a deposit for a Nissan Leaf because I was only a day behind you on that one.
Yep.
And so which is good. And it looks like I'm off. Well, we're both off, aren't we? To Portugal at the end of the month to actually try one out.
Yep. Although I should probably put a disclaimer in here. If I'm going, Nissan will be flying me out. And I should say, that that's going to happen. As you know, they're paying for me to go out there and drive the car. At least that's what I have.
It's great, isn't it? It's lovely. It's wonderful being journalists and writers, isn't it?
It's a tough one because, as a journalist, when a company pays you to go out and review their vehicle, you still have to be completely honest about it. But, you have to say, look, they are paying me to go out. They're not paying me to go out, sorry. They're not paying me anything. They're paying for my flight. And there's a big difference there. So hopefully I can retain my journalistic integrity. A gentleman who has integrity in bucket loads. I don't know if he has any journalistic integrity because he's not a journalist, but he's been on the show lots before and knows more about electric cars, I think, than a lot of our guests, and certainly has plenty of miles driving them. And he has some really exciting news. Please welcome back to the show, Mr. Michael Thwaite, all the way from New York.
New York, yeah. Thanks for inviting me along again. It's great to be back.
Tell us your news, Michael. You have done a deed this month, haven't you, that has rendered you gasless?
Gasless. And hopefully a longer gasless future. Yeah, it's good week this week. We said goodbye to our last gas-powered car, which was kind of, a little sad because it was a really nice car. But kind of good because we're now actually sort of living the electric dream 100%. So we're going to see what it's like to actually really not have that gas fallback. I mean, I guess it's going to be okay because we never used the thing, so it's not a huge change. But the good news is that Mini of BMW kindly let me extend the lease on the Mini, so we're going to be playing with that for a bit longer. And well, fingers crossed. We may even get to the BMW Active E program next summer.
Yeah, and you wanting to actually have one of those Active E's? Because we talked about this on the show last week.
Yeah, if I can get hold of one, I would definitely. I mean, if you look at the specification, it looks good. I mean, it the Mini is fantastic fun to drive. I mean, it's a great car. But it is just a conversion of an existing Mini, so it's it's heavier and you can feel that. But I've heard that the Active E is going to be a bit more of a dedicated car, even though it's based on a 1 Series. I understand that they've taken away some of the the underpinnings and replaced them with lighter weight components to support the batteries. So net, I think the resulting car is not going to be as significantly heavier than the original. So the little small motor that's going to go into the 1 Series might still be as much fun to drive as the Mini. Fingers crossed.
Well, I do hope so. Sorry, I just had myself on mute then, and I was trying to figure out why I was trying to speak to you and it wasn't working. The thing that concerns me though about this BMW Active E trial is that it is just a trial, firstly, and secondly, why not go out and buy a Leaf or a Volt or a Coda or a
Well, I put my deposit down for a Leaf, and they sent me an email a little while ago saying that I couldn't have a Leaf until the end of 2011 because I won't get in, even though
Seriously?
I was. Even though I got in on the actual day that they opened it up. I mean, I was sat there, refresh, submit, and got my $99 in. It looks like they're not going to make it in the first tranche to the northeast of the US. They seem to be sticking to the West Coast and some of Europe. I think next year it'll open up, but that's going to leave me with a bit of a gap.
That's really sad.
Well, yes and no. I mean, I think the Leaf looks great, and I think it's going to be a tremendous car. But when I look at the BMW 1 Series, for me, that's even better because it's all the whiz bang that the Leaf has. Same kind of range, similar sort of performance, I think. Anyway,
right.
I mean, we won't know until it comes out. But it's a very cool looking car, and it's a good, nice 4-seater, same as the Leaf. But it, I don't know, from a looks point of view, I think it has the edge, and I'm a bit of a fan of BMWs and German cars in general. So I think it's going to be a really nice car to own, and it's going to be one of that perfect, 100-mile electric car niche, that car that you use most of the time, to do, 99% of everything that you ever do, sort of thing. It's going to be a really nice companion for going to work, coming back, popping to the grocery stores, picking up the children, doing all of the things that you'd normally do with a regular car. And I think it'll do it a smidge better than the Leaf.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think we are at a point now, aren't we, Mike? Let's bring Mike into the conversation, where, car companies are actually getting loyalty spread across their design. So Michael said he likes German cars. Now he can choose to go for a German car. A couple of months ago, a couple of years ago, it wasn't a case of, well, I'll go for a German manufacturer because I like German cars, or I'll go for a Japanese manufacturer. I love the Japanese design of cars. I think the Japanese make great cars. Other people, are more of an American, like they're homegrown. If they're in the States, they're the American feel. It's a really good thing now, isn't it, that we can choose?
It is. There's a choice of cars on the market and coming out. I mean, say what Michael was saying about the BMW 1 Series. I've driven the BMW 1 Series, the regular gasoline models, and it's a very different feel of a car to the Leaf. It's smaller on the inside, but yeah, it's a much better handling package and everything else. It'll be interesting to see how BMW create the electric version, because again, like the Mini, it will be a conversion from the standard one, and as a packaged vehicle, the BMW 1 Series is a front engine rear wheel drive vehicle, so there's that takes up quite a lot of interior space. So it'd be interesting to see they can use that then for the battery packaging and everything else. So they could end up with a much better packaged car than they have managed to do with the Mini. And of course, for BMW, it is vitally important. They want to keep the sportiness of the brand and the handling right and all that sort of stuff. So I think they could come up with a very good job. It will be very interesting to see how that does compare with the other cars out there. And a sporty electric car, great. Great for the image of electric cars in general.
Let's talk about the image of electric cars here, because we'll go on to our first story of the week. And it revolves around Mr. Ben Collins. Who would like to say who Mr. Ben Collins is?
Yeah, well, funnily enough, I met Ben Collins a few years ago, 3 years ago, I think it was, on a Top Gear shoot that I was at, because my car was on Top Gear. And I was racing him, me and my G-Wiz, and he controlling a remote control car. But at the time I didn't sort of click that Ben Collins was the Stig. It was only afterwards that I thought, hang on, put the two together. And he's a great bloke, and it was a lot of fun. And he like a lot of the Top Gear people, they actually have an open mind about electric cars. Give them a good electric car, and they'll try it out. And of course, at the time there wasn't one. The G-Wiz isn't exactly the sort of car that Top Gear fans dream of at night. But when the Tesla came out, I spoke to the guys at Top Gear, and they absolutely loved it. They really did think that was an incredible car. So the fact that Ben Collins loves the Tesla comes as no surprise at all.
Okay, so let's backtrack a bit. Ben Collins, aka the Stig, on Top Gear. He has been with it's obviously Top Gear is the British motoring program, has been with Top Gear now for several years as their masked stranger. And every week, they do something strange about... they make up some strange story about the Stig. And you'll see this image now if you're watching the video, picture of him with his crash helmet on. And you can't see through the crash helmet. And that's part of the joke, is playing on the anonymity of racing car drivers once they've got their crash helmets on. Ben is a Formula 3 racer, Mike?
That's right, yes. He was in Formula 3 for a number of years, and since then been doing various other bits, touring cars and the like.
And he wanted to publish his autobiography. And the BBC said, no, you can't. Tried to take him to court, so they could stop him from disclosing that he was one of a long line of Stigs. He got fired from Top Gear, and has since, started doing a bit of work for The Sun, which is an interesting choice. For those of you who don't know, The Sun is a newspaper in the UK, best known for its page 3 models, which are generally not wearing anything. I wouldn't class The Sun as a particularly trustworthy or good quality newspaper. But anyway, Ben has been writing for them this week and has test driven the Nissan Leaf. Here we go. There's the front page of The Sun. Nissan Leaf is like driving the iPod. And he has a little video on here where he talks about the Nissan Leaf and loves it. He's very, complimentary about the fact that you can heat it up in the morning before you go to work when it's cold. He's very complimentary about the fact that you can check on your car's charge status. He liked the handling, didn't like the steering so much, but was very complimentary about it. And actually his article finishes by being extremely, extremely complimentary. And I can't remember exactly what he said, so I'm just going to grab my laptop and I'll read it off. He said, electric-powered vehicles were pioneered more than 100 years ago. So it's remarkable that the powers shaping human history have managed to conceal their advantage for so long. The secret is finally out and the dawn of a new driving era is arriving. Now, for the masked chap who has been responsible for some fantastic driving feats and stunts in what must be the world's most petrol-headed motoring magazine programme, is pretty phenomenal. And his colleagues on Top Gear, his former colleagues, would certainly not agree with him, I think, on that. Well done, Ben. And the day after, Tesla went, well, actually, he's driven the Tesla at Brands Hatch, and he liked that too. So, yaboo shucks. So, I'm kind of quite pleased with that, and congratulations to them. Should we go with another Tesla story now, Michael? This week, Tesla opened its factory in Fremont in California, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's kind of interesting stuff because they invited some journalists in to look around the factory, and there was some sneak peeks at some of the new technology. And one of the most exciting things I thought was the battery for the Model S, which, I apologize, I get excited about batteries, but it's completely flat. I don't know if you have a picture to bring up. What they've done, actually, I think is pretty clever. They've made it very, very thin and actually very, very strong. So it becomes a sort of structural member of the underside of the car. And obviously, it's not going to take up any space in the front of the car or the back of the car. So it leaves those both, pretty much open. And to actually sort of take the battery and say, if we make this strong enough and make it a structural part of the car, then we can sort of discount a lot of the weight involved in the battery pack as adding to the car because we're making it part of the car. So I think that's a fantastic move, and it seems logical when you look at it, but to see it actually happen is great news.
There you go. News. There's a picture there of it, and it literally is. It's really, really flat. I mean, there's only a little bulge at the end, isn't there? Really.
Now, what interests me about that image, though, is they talked about battery swap technology. And I'm not a huge fan of battery swap technology, just because I have visions of those gas bottles that you can rent, and you go out and you buy one and you take it and you swap it for a full one, and you get the full one and it's all battered and rusty in grotty condition. But it kind of opens the door to that battery swap technology as well. I think if they were to somehow make it, even though it's a structural part removable, I don't know, it could be an engineering nightmare, but because it really is on the bottom of the car, it really could come out of the bottom of the car, and it really could maybe be swapped.
I just think it's really fantastic looking battery pack, really. I can't wait to see what comes next out of that. But Tesla have been, Tesla are very, very they've got a very good publicity department now. I suppose I should say that they've now got a former colleague of mine now working at Tesla, Camille Ricketts, who we worked together for a while we were editorial partners on two different websites that shared content, and she was brilliant there. And I've had her on this show, and also This Week in Energy before, and she's a very knowledgeable lady, and she's working in their press team, and they've got they're really, really, really clued in, and you know they seem to know their stuff really, really well. Now, there's some other Tesla news. Should we just get all the Tesla news out of the way this week, Michael?
Just get the next bit done.
Have you had a letter, Michael?
I got an email on Friday night, a letter. That's a bit 20th century. I got an email on Friday night. Yeah, basically, dear Roadster owner, this notice is sent to you in accordance with the National Traffic and Motor Vehicle Safety Act. Well, basically, it looks like they found a cable running under the between the wheel arch lining and the carbon fiber bodywork. That's obviously they've seen some signs of it being scuffed away, so they've voluntarily decided to issue a recall, which kind of makes sense. And so we got a phone call. My car's booked in for a couple of weeks' time, so I don't think it's something that they're scrambling to replace or to check out. It's interesting. The news has variously reported it as a voluntary recall, up to Tesla is recalling their cars because they catch fire. And I can't get to the bottom of this story, but I've yet to see anything that actually comes from Tesla to say that there was an actual fire. I think it's more likely that they've found somewhere where wiring chafes, and this happens all the time.
Okay, well, I covered this story earlier this week, and I talked to Tesla, and the official line is an owner reported that there was, I think, a funny smell or something along those lines. There was an incident involving one car in which there was a short, which could have gone ahead and done X, Y, and Z. And it's a voluntary recall. It's not anything major. They know what the problem is. It's a 1 hour fix. And they're contacting 436 owners. I think it's quite 436.
Yeah, it's basically everything Roadster 2.0 and onwards. On the original 1.0s, they didn't have the same wiring arrangement, the same sort of standby battery. There's a little motorcycle battery tucked away in that corner that powers the systems like the door locks, the side lights, things like that. The kind of stuff that you'd need in an emergency if there was some problem with the main power system. It's
439 cars. That's the official line on it. But as I said, when I wrote a post earlier on this week, and as I said in the post, Tesla is now a grown-up automaker. They've grown up. They've had their first big recall. Congratulations.
Well, this is their second, actually.
Is it their second? Thank you.
Yeah, second. Yeah, the wheels fall off too.
Oh.
Yeah, the early ones. There was I think a mid-production run where somebody wasn't quite torquing up the some part of the suspension, the wheel hubs, on a smaller run of cars. So they were bringing them in those earlier cars to check the torque settings. So that's 2 recalls, I guess. I was trying to search out to see how many recalls is average for a car, because 2 recalls in a couple of years sort of feels like a lot of recalls for a small, for a car. But then, if you contrast that to the fact that it's a new car, new company, new car, new technology.
Go on, Mike. What do you think? Because
it really does depend. I'm trying to think some cars obviously get no recalls at all. Other ones you'll get 1, possibly 2. It's very rare you get more than 2, but yeah, it's not unheard of for a brand new car, especially something as revolutionary as the Tesla, to have problems. It's a small manufacturer, and these sort of things happen. Now, of course, with big manufacturers, they build 100 vehicles before the car goes into production properly, and they test them in every sort of condition with every sort of road user and all sorts of different things, and they'll test them for a good 9 months or so. and then they'll rip them all apart afterwards. And yet they still get recalls as well. So, it's one of those things. I guess the recalls are facts of life, and there's no easy way of getting around that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, and it's just like computers. I mean, you only have to look at Apple. If you're watching at home, this little thing here, my iPhone, and my free case, my free plastic case, which, lots of conspiracy theorists have said, we'll come on to conspiracy theorists later on in the show, lots of people have said that this little bumper that they've designed is too well built and too well designed for Apple to have not realised that there was a problem with this antenna on the outside. And so, sometimes things do go to market with people knowing that there are problems. Other times, as I'm sure is the case with Tesla, it just happened and they've got to fix it, and they know how to fix it. It's just a little bit of insulation that they can whack on, and all is well. But there's going to be an increase in EV hating and in people not happy about how EVs perform, not happy about the way that EVs are improving or are seen to be improving in the world. And unfortunately, the next story we're going to talk about after the break is actually not from anti-EV people, but actually from people who supposedly want electric vehicles. And that's a really, really scary and sad thing. But first, we should go and have a break with Audible. You guys have heard of Audible, right?
We have heard.
Excellent. You've heard of Audible.
I use them.
Yeah, they're great. And Audible podcast is a great way to listen to your favourite books. And it can be anything from science fiction to romance to self-help to teen to funny, amusing novels to classics, and read by some of the best actors in the world and some of the best authors in the world. And our friends over at audiblepodcast.com have a great deal for you today. If you go to www.audiblepodcast.com/Transport Evolved, you will get a chance to have one free audiobook, no obligation, completely free, to do with whatever you want. So that's www.audiblepodcast.com/Transport Evolved. And this week we have a great, well, I think it's great, because I'm a bit of a geek. Can either of you guess what it is? You bet you can't. No.
Internal Combustion by Edwin Black?
It's really geeky. It's like, it's very geeky. It is, in fact, Star Trek.
Hey!
Can you make a link between the character Q from the Star Trek universe and me? I shall start the Jeopardy music. Do, 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 do,
You watched him on TV and he hasn't seen you?
The actor who plays Q, John Delancey, is in fact the son of John Delancey Sr. John Delancey Sr. is in fact a very talented oboist called John Delancey.
That's a musician.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yep. And
musician, yes. As soon as you mentioned the name, I recognised it.
And John Delancey Sr. had a piece written for him called the Strauss Oboe Concerto. And it's one of my favourite oboe concertos, and I've played it. So there is the connection between myself and good old Q on Star Trek. And if you like Star Trek, you will like this. It's Q Squared, The Next Generation, by Peter David, and it's narrated by none other than John Delancey. So there you go. That's my pick of the week. You can get that for free if you go to www.audiblepodcast.com/Transport Evolved. Thank you to them for their kind support of the show. Now, gents, we should go on with the next part of today's show. We had Chelsea Sexton on last week. Did you guys get the show last week?
Mm-hmm.
I did.
And so you know her news.
Good show.
You know her news. Thank you. You know her news then.
Yes. She's lucky. She's getting to play with new toys.
Have you seen, basically, for those who haven't heard, Chelsea Sexton is being loaned for 3 months a Chevy Volt, 2011 Chevy Volt, before it goes to market, along with 14 other people who are becoming the Chevrolet Volt Customer Advisory Board, and their job as EV advocates and industry experts is to give feedback to Chevy on the Volt. Now, you would not believe the number of negative comments I have seen this week from people who are bashing on Chelsea, bashing on anybody at all who stands up for General Motors and Chevrolet. I'm not going to go into some of the comments here. They've commented, I've seen them dig into some of actually this show's listeners, and a couple of people who listen to this show have been, commenting on it on various sites, and I've seen them been attacked and been accused of working for GM or having an inside motive. It's bringing me onto the subject of this hardcore group of people who seek to destroy the EV industry unintentionally by perpetuating this 2002 concept of the world. And I say that because obviously that's the year that these cars started to be crushed, the EV1 and the RAV4. And Michael, do you have you encountered people like this?
Yeah, I mean, you get it from time to time, but I mean, I guess I've said this before, trying to convince people in sort of 2010 that petrol cars have a future is like trying to persuade people at the turn of the century that horses will rule forever. It's just, we're just moving forwards. That's all. I think the Stiggs comment was brilliant. When he talked about how this new revolution was coming and how amazed he was that that this secret had been kept for so long. I mean, I listened to the climate and read about the sort of climate backwards and forwards about whether the sun is or isn't heating the world up, and that's the cause of global warming, or whether it's what we're doing with CO2. But I don't get the haters. I don't understand the haters. Why would you not want a car which was quieter, smoother, easier to drive, potentially quicker, and at the same time didn't, regardless of the CO2, all the other junk that they throw out, the oil that they spill, the mess and the inconvenience. I don't get it. Why would you want that? Why would you want to go back 100 years and have horses instead of, internal combustion engine cars? It wouldn't have made sense 100 years ago, and I don't think it makes sense to not move forwards today.
I think the issue that we're faced with right now is that there are people who cannot cope with the idea of going fully electric. Either cannot cope with the idea or physically cannot live without having a vehicle that can go further than the range of some of the vehicles that are coming to market. Now, yes, we know 100 miles is more than enough for 99% of the population. But I would say 65% of the population will think that that's not true. And what we're seeing now is people who are hardcore EV enthusiasts, EV geeks, are actually becoming increasingly vocal against vehicles like the plug-in Prius, against vehicles like the Chevy Volt, against, some of these concepts we saw last week at the Paris Motor Show, and are actually splitting supporters of plug-in vehicles down the middle and causing this rift because they're spending so much time attacking people like Chelsea Sexton, like me, who really do want just to see electric vehicles succeed, whether they have a gasoline engine in them or not, as a range extender. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of range extenders because I know that I don't need one. But it seems really, really nasty, really visceral to spend so much energy being so horrible to a group of people who are trying to do the right thing. And that does include GM. And the other point I want to make before I let you guys speak, because I hold the microphone, is that, it would be a little bit like, if you examine the generations of cars, there's been, about 100 years of cars now. Let's say that the EV1 and the Chevy Volt are about 1 or 2 generations apart. I think that's probably fair to say, in terms of car lifespan, etc., etc. It would be, what these people are doing is the equivalent of people who still harbour a grudge against the Japanese because of Pearl Harbor, who still harbour a grudge against all German people because of the Holocaust. I'm going to lay it down. If you are listening to this and you attack the Chevy Volt, you attack the plug-in Prius, you attack people who are trying to bring plug-in vehicles of some sort to market, and are harbouring this conspiracy theory, you are no better than people who are still going on about acts that happened in the Second World War and blaming people who live today from those countries for those atrocities, even if they had nothing to do with it. I'll shut up now and let one of you speak.
Who's going to take this one?
Go on, Michael.
I'll
You
lead
can
with
take
this
that
one.
one to start with.
You know what? I'm not a journalist. You said earlier on, we talked about being a journalist. I'm not a journalist. In fact, actually, a good friend pointed this out to me, who is a journalist, and said, no, you're not a journalist at all. You're an advocate. And I thought,
yeah, you are.
Is that denigrating, or is that a good thing?
No,
or is that
that's
a bad
a good thing.
And I thought about it for a while, and I said, no, you know what? That's my place. I'm an advocate. Now, I am going to try my best to counter the negative. So journalists can sit in the middle and report the facts and provide context to what's being said. I am going to tell people that EVs are absolutely fantastic. And I am going to a certain degree, I'm going to sell them on the positives, and I'm going to ignore some of the negatives. I'm not a journalist, I'm an advocate, because I want people to adopt en masse electric vehicles, because I think they're great. And if I think they're great, I kind of feel that, you should take a look at them. You might think they're great too. But I did learn a long time ago, and this is a tricky one, that if you take somebody whose lifestyle and you say that's the wrong lifestyle, you need to be doing something different. I haven't had a great deal of success with that. Found a lot more success when I say, you have a great lifestyle, but hey, have you checked this out? Because it could be even better. Now, okay, that I try to apply that. It doesn't work it doesn't work very often, because I'm an advocate and I get heated about these discussions. But in some respects, I quite like the people who knock EVs, because I like them to be vocal a little bit, because that gives us an in to say, well, actually, that's not right. And I love those rants that they go on like Chelsea's blog. People dive in and they rant and they rant and they rant. And the best thing ever is to respond with a beautifully laid out, sane, calm,
coherent,
point by point. Actually, you're not right. You're wrong. Here's why. Let the viewers decide.
I think the problem is, the rant that I'm having right now is not against people who don't like EVs. It's people who like EVs, but hate this range extended.
Hate the middle ground.
Yeah, they won't accept hybrids. They won't accept plug-in range extended electric vehicles.
I was there. I get it. I kind of was there. For the last year, I've been very, very skeptical about the Leaf and the Prius, and it did take somebody to sort of tap me on the head and say,
right,
but that there's no way that we're going to switch overnight to electric cars. And I want to sort of bang on the desk and go, no, we can do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the reality is I think it's more pragmatic to sort of say, you know what? Take the Volt. It's a great car. You'll enjoy it when it's in electric mode, and then we'll all secretly chuckle when the engine starts up and the whole thing shakes and rattles, and you start to wonder what the hell is going on.
Well,
and then you start to sort of wonder about whether it makes more sense to have a bigger battery and a smaller engine.
Well, I go on this concept that I cannot think of a single person who has bought a Prius and not become obsessed about gas mileage. So consequentially, I cannot imagine a single person who buys a Chevy Volt not becoming obsessed with not using the gasoline.
The engine.
Yeah.
Do you think though that there's going to once these get into the hands of just regular Joe who maybe hubby is a real EV enthusiast, maybe wifey is like, just give me whatever car I have to drive, or the other way around. And so they don't plug it in, so they ignore it and they just drive it like a regular car. Where does that lead us? Does that lead to a whole bunch of people going, I don't know what they're fun about this Chevy Volt is. I get 35 miles to the gallon out of mine. It's rubbish.
Well, there will be people who do that. I mean, I know people, let's put it like that, who do get poor mileage out of hybrids, but that's because they drive them like a racing car. It's not a member of my family, by the way, because I mentioned my wife's uneconomical driving last week. But they sit at the traffic lights and they take their foot off the brake and whack it down on the gas pedal, and they race to the next lights and put their foot back on the brake. And
seems perfectly reasonable,
and they won't get good gas mileage because that's how they're driving. But I think yeah, your point is, will there be a load of people who don't bother plugging the Volt in? Sure, there might be 20 years down the line when they're to a penny, but I genuinely don't think that anybody is going to lay out, what is it, $30,000-$40,000 on a car that can plug in to then not plug it in.
I guess it's the second generation.
But the other thing, of course, it costs so much more money to use gasoline than it does to use electricity. So you plug it in simply because it's a cheaper thing to do. Forget the fact that you've got a car that can do it. It's just simply down to the price and the convenience. Because for so many people, if you're just commuting to and from work Mondays to Fridays, that's the time when you can use your electricity, the whole electric vehicle, the whole time, which is brilliant. And that means that you only need the range extender for maybe a couple of times a week at the most, possibly at weekends. And you'll be going to the petrol station only once every, month or so, which would be fantastic. And the other great thing about the plug-in cars, I guess, is that so many people are worried about the range of the cars. They think that they need a car that can do 50, 100, 200, 300 miles. When they get a Volt and realise that actually they hardly ever have the engine cut in, because they're only ever using the electric mileage, it means the next time round, what are they going to buy? They're going to buy a plug-in a hybrid, or are they going to go for a pure electric car? They've got a choice.
Well, let's go into this now, because there was a news report this week in the Telegraph with Andrew English, who said, was talking about the Mitsubishi i-MiEV has entered into production for Europe. They're making them in Japan, but they've entered into that production phase. Of course, there are three variants in Europe. There's the Mitsubishi i-MiEV, which is the most expensive. Then there's the Citroen C0 and the Peugeot Ion. They're essentially the same car, just rebadged. Right. There are a few body panel differences, I think, Mike. Is that right? Couple of styling
not body panels, they're not body panels, but there are some differences in configuration. Funnily enough, I was actually with the guys at Peugeot yesterday, their head office, talking to them about their Ion and the work they're doing on it, and they're very excited about getting their paws on a new electric car. And yeah, there are one or two sort of technical tweaks and that sort of thing, stuff on the interior and that sort of thing, but by and large it's the same car.
I think the article that was done this week with Andrew English, he was saying, I'm just trying to get it up now, was saying something along the lines of, that the people who first, I'm just making sure I'm not misrepresenting him, but I think it said somewhere in the article that there was a test scheme in Birmingham and Coventry, which of course you're taking part in, and
that's right.
People didn't drive more than 20 miles a day because they were worried about running out of power.
Actually, the average mileage was 22 miles. The average mileage for a person with a normal internal combustion engine car in the UK is 22 and a half miles. So in reality, that was a little bit of misrepresentation there, because that people are using it as a normal car. What's really interesting is since then, i.e. today, the information's come out from the second part of the trial from Cabled, where people are using the electric car an awful lot more. They've got the confidence in the range. The longest distance anyone's used the car for in a single day is 125 miles.
And that was you?
Not bad for an 80-mile range car, is it?
Was that you?
No, it wasn't me. I did 117. No, it wasn't me. It was somebody else. I don't know who it was. I won't say. But I did 117 miles in one day, and I've done 115 another day. But somebody else had done 125.
There you go. I bet it was Robert. I bet it was Mr. Llewellyn.
Mm.
Yeah.
The sort of thing you do, isn't it? Yeah,
it is the sort of thing you do. Right, let's go on to something more exciting now, because I'm just going to get ranty. I want...
Let me just throw
before
in
we do
average.
That, before we do that...
40 miles.
Okay.
Go on, Mike. Quickly.
Okay, yeah. Talking about the Peugeot thing, the Peugeot version of the Ion... of the iMe, which they're going to call the Ion. What's really interesting is the way they're going to be selling it. They're not going to sell it at all. They're going to lease it. And it's purely available as a lease. So literally everything from the servicing and everything else is self-contained, one big lease. And they're going really very much by the mobile phone model. You pay for the a monthly charge, and you've got the vehicle. What really is nice though is if you need to swap it for another vehicle because you need the extra range for the odd occasional journey, you can just take the car back to Peugeot, to your local Peugeot dealer, pick up another car and just take it off. And then you come back and you swap it back again. So you got rid of the range issue quite simply, because if you need to go 200 miles one day, or for a weekend or whatever it happens to be, you can do it. It gives that flexibility built into the lease. And I thought that's really quite clever.
Cool. Yeah,
I agree.
I think that's a good idea.
I think that's a game-changing offer. Because, the people who approach me and I say, what's the range? And I say, well, that one does 200 and some miles, that one does 100 miles. They most people are kind of like, well, actually, I don't do that many miles, but I do occasionally. Well, so we always paint these 100-mile cars as your second car, the commuter thing, the thing you use to do 90% of what you do, but that you can't rely on all the time.
Yep.
For Peugeot to say that, my God, I think that's absolutely brilliant. That it kills dead in with a big full stop the whole debate about, well, what do I do when I want to go and see my aunt at the weekend and she lives 300 miles away? Done, finished.
I think it does.
Absolutely.
And it
Absolutely.
doesn't. I think it does and it doesn't. I think you would be surprised at how many people are selfish, and it boils down to selfishness. I once had a conversation with a lady in a car park when I had my Volkswagen, and I'm sitting there with my Volkswagen, and she thought it was brilliant. She thought it was the dog's doodads. And she, asked all these questions about range, and I went, yeah, I can get 50 miles out of it, does 70 miles an hour, I can get all my shopping in it, blah, blah, blah. She said, great, will it go up to Scotland? And I went, well, I suppose you could drive it up to Scotland, but no, I'd probably go on the train or hire a car. She said, oh, no, I would never do that. I said, so why do you want to go up to Scotland? Well, I go up to Scotland once a year to see a relative.
Right.
And this is why you've got, and she'd freely admitted, this was why she had her Land Rover Discovery. Because she had to go up to the Highlands, and sometimes it snowed. For that one trip, once a year.
The snow
and
one,
she
yeah.
justified owning this really huge car with poor gas mileage for an entire, because she couldn't possibly hire one. And you know what she said? It's because, well, I don't want to use somebody else's car. That's dirty. I don't want to drive a car somebody else has been driving. That's dirty. And I think even if you buy a used car, there is still that, oh no, I can't, oh no, this.
Actually, you know what? Okay, that's a sound point. But I like the other term you used, justify.
Yeah.
She justified. That's interesting, because that implies that she felt as though she was on the back foot.
Yeah.
That she had to prove to you that
defensive shot in cricket. That was.
Okay.
That was a push.
But,
push past the wickets.
Yeah, my guess would be this. I don't know about how the UK market is nowadays, but in the US, people don't really look after the cars very well, I don't think. Second-hand cars can be a bit grotty, I think. But my expectation would be is if you're 2 years into a Peugeot Ion lease and you have to make that trip up to Scotland, I think that the car that you're going to get from the dealer is going to be a under 3,000 mile Peugeot. I guess it's going to be like a 106, something like that. It's going to be newer than your car.
You have a choice of cars. You have a choice of cars. So if you're going long distance, you get a big car. You can get a big car. If you want to borrow a van, you can borrow a van. It literally is whatever you want. You can borrow a Peugeot bicycle, apparently, if you really wanted one.
So I need to go down to the tip, the dump, whatever, and I need to borrow a van to get rid of my old crap, whatever, from the house. I go down to Peugeot and I say, "Can I borrow a van for the day?" Oh, come on!
Yeah,
it's brilliant.
Yeah,
the
only problem I have with it is the price. I think a lot of people are going to look at the leasing for the Ion and go, and this is another thing that the press have jumped on. I have not jumped on it, but other members of the press have, which is you have this 4-year lease and then you can extend that for another 4 years, by which time if you have an 8-year lease on the car, you really have paid a lot of money for it. Of course, you do get the option of borrowing this car free of charge when you need to. You've got the option of that the batteries are always going to be looked after.
Mm-hmm.
But again, people are still suspicious of leasing. I don't think so much in the States, but certainly in the UK, leasing is viewed as in the same way that TV rentals. I don't know if you remember back in the 80s when colour TVs were 70s and 80s, when TVs were still, most people still had a black and white TV or maybe not a TV at all. We went into the colour TV world. TV rental shops popped up all over the UK, and then they rented out videos and it was aimed squarely at people who quite frankly could not afford a colour TV but wanted one, and they paid £1.25 a week. That's fine if you're doing it for 1 year or 2 years. But if you're doing that and you don't refresh your vehicle, or you don't refresh your TV, or you don't get that sense that you're still being kept up with the Joneses, I don't think people are going to do it.
I want to disagree with that because
I'm being a devil's advocate. Go ahead.
Good, go ahead. But if you're going to keep your car 3 years, I must admit there's something. One of the problems with leasing, the only problem I find with leasing is the mileage, right? At the end of the day, the leasing company wants to calculate the residual value of the car. And that, and particularly in a petrol-powered car, is based on very much so on the mileage, because obviously they wear out very quickly. Now, with the Mini, you don't have that mileage fear. So we're 11, or is it 12,000 miles now in the last 10 months. So yeah, 12,000 miles in 10 months. We're doing about 1,200 miles a month. And we don't care, we really don't care. And we don't have this specter of lease end, payments because we've gone over the mileage, or the remorse that we paid for the 15,000 mile a year solution and we only did 10,000 miles a year. We don't have any of that worries. There's really a lot to be said for having this chunk of money going out each month and knowing that your car is in great condition. I'm never going to go to the dealership and get whacked with a big bill. I'm never going to discover that, oh my God, my car is actually worth about half what I actually paid for it 3 years ago, which I just discovered. And the depreciation, let me tell you, is more than on the car I just sold, is a lot more than that car costs per month. So, I think in the commodity world, like the Stig said, it's like driving an iPod. I think in the commodity electric car world that we're going to see in the next 10 years, these things are going to be like, renting a TV. You're not going to really want to own it because you don't want to get involved in the batteries. You don't want to get involved in the depreciation. You just want a vehicle to move around in.
Yeah. Okay.
I agree.
I'll buy that.
Yeah.
I think it will work for some people, and it will not work for others. And I think that's pretty much where we're at. But hey,
no, damn it works for everybody. Told you.
I think we like to think that. I mean, but you're quite right. I mean, gas cars is ridiculous. As a bit of a brat run, week before, I took our Smart for 2 CDI diesel smart car to a dealer 100 miles away, because, not 100 miles, but 60 miles away, because the dealer 60 miles away was £100 cheaper at servicing the car than the dealer 5 miles down the road that we bought the car from. The servicing cost was twice the monthly payment. Had I gone to the local dealer, it would have been 3 times the monthly payment. The smart car actually is a low payment every month. We've gone over our mileage, and when we get our Leaf, we're gonna probably have to pay some money to the dealer, you know, and that's not a nice feeling.
It's not good.
Not nice. But I think you know, it all revolves around this: do you need a range extended vehicle or not? And I think everyone is different. You know, we'll be quite happy with 2 electric. We're going to end up with 2 electric cars probably, and a 25-year or 20-year-old car that just sits on the driveway and only gets used once a year, because actually it costs us less to do that than it would be to find a hire company willing to let us take our dogs in the car. And someone would go, well, you could leave your dogs at home. Well, yeah, I could. But for my situation, that's the only situation that I've found at the moment that works. For other people, renting a car is acceptable and they can have a Leaf or whatever. And other people will go with something like the Peugeot option or the Citroen option. But there is one vehicle that I really want, and I really want to have a go in, and I know I'm never going to, but I can keep saying I want one, is this. Has anybody seen the E-Tracer? Won the X Prize, obviously. They're going to make them.
Nice looking thing.
In California. How about that?
Ooh.
Although they're talking, I think, about, I don't know how much the price is, but it's pricey. It's not a motorbike.
Yeah, the one that I really want, I still really want, is the Aptera. The wacky looks and everything else. I want one of them. Whether I'll ever get one or not, I doubt it somehow. It's not exactly a practical family car, is it?
It ain't gonna happen.
I just want one. I really want one. Please.
It ain't gonna happen. I don't see that happening. I think that Aptera, they'll probably get some vehicles out. They don't have a product that is mainstream enough to get enough people buying it. For 20...
If they were in the UK, I would agree with you, because the market would be just too small. But you know, with 250 odd million people living in the US, and okay, 250 million odd people, maybe not that many odd people, but you know, and there's enough odd people out there to justify something like the Aptera. I hope so, for the sanity of the human race. There really ought to be enough people out there to justify cars like the Aptera. Wouldn't it be boring if we all drove around a Chevy Volt?
I'll lay it down. And I've said this before, and I said at the beginning of the show, obviously, disclosure, press disclosure. I'm going to go to Portugal to drive the Nissan Leaf. Nissan are paying for my flight. Okay, that's laying on the line. But I will still be honest about the Leaf when I get over there. Yes, everyone knows I like the Nissan Leaf, and I've driven several Nissan Leafs, and it's a very it's a cool car. Yeah. I like it, but that's because, and again, I say when I write articles on it, I like the Prius. So therefore, the second generation Prius. I like the second generation Prius. The Leaf is very similar in its feel and the way it drives, except it doesn't have an engine. I like the car. I want one. I'm buying one. And, I say to people, I'm buying a Leaf. But if Aptera wants to fly me out to California, let me have an Aptera for a couple of days, give me a chance to drive it, give me a chance to test it, and basically let me see for myself, QED, then I will change my mind. But until that happens, I have no experience of that car. And the people that I have talked to who have experience of that car, and the videos I've seen, have demonstrated to me that A, it's not ready for prime time yet. B, it's maybe got some safety concerns. And C, it's not a practical vehicle. I love the design. I would love an Aptera. If I had, if I had enough money that my interest, my goal one day is to earn enough money or to have enough money in my bank account that the interest payment on my bank account pays for everything. And if that ever happens, I would love to have an Aptera. But I just don't feel that it's, I don't know. I've lost someone. Someone's just left the chat room, maybe after that little rant. But it's true. Aptera. If you're listening,
there
if
you
you're
go. That was obviously the managing director of Aptera going offline then. But
well, seriously, Aptera.
I still love the
if
car.
You're listening,
I would love to have a car like that. It's great.
Okay, I'm going to lay it down.
It would make an ideal replacement for all the classic cars I've had in the past.
That's true.
None of which have been practical, most of which have been falling apart. And compared to that, an Aptera would be a dream car.
Okay, well, I'm going to finish. I'm going to finish by saying, here, if you are listening and you like Aptera, you know someone at Aptera, let's do it. You know, fly me out there. I'll come test drive your car, and then I'll tell you what I think. That's a challenge. No.
If anyone wants me to fly out to California, then I'm definitely I'm up for it as well.
But I mean, that's that. You know, if you want journalists to take you seriously, let automotive journalists drive the thing. And I don't know very many that have.
Well, I'm not going if they invite me.
You don't like it, Michael?
No, I put a deposit down for one and they cancelled my deposit.
Why?
Because I don't live in California.
Okay.
So I put my deposit on Tesla instead, and Tesla got my money. I used to be a big fan of the Aptera, and I was very enthusiastic that it should go ahead because it was all the right things. You know, it was so purist. You know, it was like the original
6 years ago.
Honda
Yes.
Insight. Yeah. But like the original Honda Insight, which was all about fuel economy. You know, it was, we're going to make it this shape because that's more economical. We're going to put these wheels on because they're more economical. We're going to do this because it's more economical. We're going to take the carpets out because it's more economical. You know, all of that stuff. This thing was pure and dedicated towards low drag and high efficiency. So I liked that. I must admit I liked that. But, you know, when I look around, particularly in North America, you know, I think the North Americans are only just cracking the fact that, you know, hatchbacks make more sense than cars with a trunk on the back. And, you know, the Fiesta sales are demonstrating that is now something of the past. But to go to the level of trying to get somebody to drive an Aptera, I think is too much of an ask, certainly for North America right now, which is a shame. But the reason I wouldn't actually go if they asked me to is because I don't think I'm going to say that. And as an EV advocate, I don't really want to sort of stand up and put my hand up and say, "Nah, this car is not ready for prime time."
6 years ago, when the car, you know, first hit the limelight, I would have jumped at the chance to own one, and I know lots of people that would, because there was no other car available. But it's back to the earlier discussion we had at the top of the show. Now there are so many options. You can be more fussy. Mm-hmm. Now the mainstream guys have jumped in, and you know, we've got these really fantastic vehicles coming to market.
Yeah, being able to say I don't want a Leaf because I have a better option, brilliant. It is. It's what we always wanted, right?
Yeah. And for you, there is a better option. For me, the Leaf meets my needs, or
it's your better option.
or even meets my needs. And with that, we should finish. Thanks for joining us today, everyone. Michael, where can people find out more about you?
Oh, michaelthwaite.me.
michaelthwaite.me.
That's a good starting point. Then you can bounce off to some fun sites like Tesla Motors Club.
Thank you very much for joining us today. And I'm getting a ride in a Tesla tomorrow. Looking forward to that. One of your fellow
excellent.
Tesla owners is in fact buying me lunch.
Nice.
So I shall say thank you in advance to the gentleman concerned. I won't name him because I don't want to embarrass him. But thank you very much for buying me lunch. I enjoyed it. It was nice. Mike, where can people find out about you?
I'm on Twitter on Mike Boxwell, and obviously various websites. Owningelectriccar.com, I guess, is probably the main one. But yeah, Twitter is probably the best way to keep up with what I'm doing on a daily basis, which seems to change. Well, I say daily basis, it seems to be changing from minute to minute. But there you go. That's joy of what I'm up to at the moment.
Well, that is it. And you can get me, of course. I'm at A Minor Journey on Twitter. And do drop over at allcarselectric.com, where I'm have the illustrious position of being their lead writer and kind of semi-lead ed. But if you want to watch us next week, you can do live at www.thisnotransportevolve.com. www.transportevolved.com/live, 8 p.m. British summertime. I get the address wrong at least once every show. I am fairly professional. Apologies if you're watching and you've noticed that the video was missing at the beginning of the show today. If you're watching the video, that was again due to another technical hiccup. We've had some issues recently with our video. I am looking into it. So my sincerest apologies. We've lost kind of the first 20 minutes of video for today's show, but the audio will be fine. So you can subscribe to the audio version if you're getting fed up with the video. We will be back next week, as I said, and do tell your friends, family, and everybody else about the show. And if you've got feedback at transportevolved.com. That is it. My name is Nikki Gordon-Bloomfield, and thank you for evolving your transport with us. Don't forget to drive smart. See you soon. Bye.